Hi guys, we are here. I am Mrs. Franny Rowe.
And I am Mrs. Sophia Ham. And we
We are.
are Psyched Wives.
Yep, so we are the Psyched Wives. This is an informal introduction of both of us. I have been married for 11 years. I have a master's in mental health counseling, and we were introduced by our husbands and became very close. We realized that we had a lot of interest in marriages and family life, and that's including everyone in the race. So I've always been a person in my group that encouraged marriage, togetherness. Um, it takes two brains to do something. And once I was introduced to Mrs. Sophie, we just clicked right away. So I'll let her introduce herself.
All right. So again, I'm Mrs. Sophie. And just kind of adding to what Fran said, Fran and I became friends through our husbands. They've known each other forever. I've been married for 4 years. And in my relationship for 9 years. So we have both been in long-term relationships, and we are both confident wives, like we are happy to be married, and we kind of crazy about our husbands. So we definitely clicked on that. And we wanted to do this podcast because during Chris's and I's road to getting married, we were interviewing couples. Isaiah and Fran were a couple on our interviews, and it just went really well. Chris and I said that we would continue to pursue it, but after about 6 couples, we really dived into wedding planning, and we didn't get to continue to do it. And ultimately, it was probably something that I desired to do more than he did. So in having a conversation with Fran and finding out she has her master's in mental health counseling, I have a bachelor's in psychology, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in clinical mental health counseling. I was like, wow, we're both wives, we're both psych majors, we both value and have goals of having our own practice for marriage and family counseling. So we were like, you know what, we should do something and start having some of those tough conversations, fun conversations, and just giving other people like a platform to come and have discussions or bring topics up, or even just current events, anything that you would like to discuss in terms of marriage, relationships, and families. We can help you have those conversations, right?
Absolutely. I can say one thing that stood out to me during COVID, I got hooked onto The Godfather KS. I know no everyone's not happy with him, but I came about his page because when he died, I seen so much information like, oh, they were like they couldn't believe the way he died, the actual way of his death, and there was so much contention around the subject. So I was curious, and I went to go follow his podcast, and I really enjoy his content. I'm not gonna lie, you guys, and I kind of got sucked into it. Even in the times where my marriage were going through our downs, the Kevin Samuels content really helps me. So I will admit that we both admitted, even when we were doing the marriage thing that you put together, that is really hard to just have people around us that were in healthy marriages that we can feed off of, which is why we picked our role models as, Rochelle, just people that could relate. Like for me, it's Rochelle from Everybody Hates Chris, right? Because I don't need this. My man got 2 jobs. Okay. So for me, that was really big because my husband is a really hard worker. And a lot of times I just wouldn't put up with the natural things in, the work field. I wouldn't want to my past is DCFS field. So there was a lot of going on there. And my husband always make fun of me, like, you like they auntie, my my kids. And I love them, but it was just a lot. So there's a lot that I would be like, okay, I'm over this. I was hopping from one end to another. Like, I want to get in this, I want to get in this. So I think we clicked on that where my mother and father were married, but they were separated, and my grandparents were married, but they were separated. So we were like, man, after being in the Kevin Samuels, I don't know if it's called manosphere or stratosphere, I don't know, but just listening to so many women who were not married, who were not interested in being married, who were not engaged, who have not even had a past marriage, have so many bad things to say, yes, about marriage. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, you know, there's a space where it's needed, where as wives we can kind of lean on each other, or future wives, anyone who's engaged, anyone who's been in, you know, married in the past. We don't want to fill this space with just complete negativity.
Right. And even women who aren't dating, who haven't found their person, but you desire to, and you desire to be married. People who are not stigmatizing marriage, because they are, and they like to say, I did see a video with light-skinned Keisha, and she was like, people feel like we are gatekeeping marriage. And that could be true. You know, I've sat in rooms and heard people kind of like downplay marriage. And I'm just like, dang, you know, I'll never do that. I've always been a girl who's like, I'm going to be a wife. You know, whether I was in a bad relationship, a good relationship, whatever the case may be, I'm like, I'm going to be a wife, because I feel like that's why I'm here. That's why Eve came from the rib. You know what I'm saying? So I knew that one day I was going to have my Adam. And I just don't like, if you feel that way, that's fine. But I don't think that you should try to discourage other women from wanting to be wives. So this is going to be a platform where we're not just saying, oh, this is just for wives, this is just for fiancés, this is just for girlfriends. No, this is a platform for people who have a like mind to be a wife, to be a fiancé, and to be in a faithful relationship. You know, that's what it's going to be. And I like the fact that Fran and I have a difference of opinions. You know, we don't see everything the same way, and we ain't never clashed on that. Like, she'll say what she think, and she hear how I think. She's like, wow, you know, and I'll be like, okay, girl, you know, because we keep our own identities. Even with, she just called this man the Godfather KS, all right? I would barely listen to anything he had to say. Sometimes I'll hear something and I'll be like, okay, but my husband would probably more agree with things that he's saying. And I'll be like, oh, he's so full of it. But in talking to her, she was like, no, Kevin Samuels, this and that. So I'm like, you know what? This is going to be really good, because we will have a difference of opinions, and we will be able to open the floor up to you guys as well, so that you can have a say in how you feel. And sometimes when you have a difference of opinion, you're able to start to understand the other person's point of view.
That was a good one, because I was going to say, I'm not known to gatekeep. So I've always been very open about my marriage and our concerns, our issues, in hopes that it will help other people. But what I would get back from a lot of my friends were that, oh, I'm glad I'm not married, because I don't want to deal with that. So I would get a lot of that, which made me revert into being more withholding of my information. So meeting Sophia was a breath of fresh air, because I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta talk about marriage and life, you know, without being judged, or without affecting the other person in a way where they're looking like, I don't want that type of marriage. Because, you know, all marriages are different. You can make your marriage what you want to make it. We're not here to judge. We're just here to bring awareness, show, you know, healthy sides of marriage. There might be things that we question in our marriage, but to keep it strong and to keep it going. Because the more older people I talk to that were saying, oh, because I was surprised. One time I think I was complaining about my husband, and an older woman, they probably were married for about 40, 50 years. She was like, oh girl, yeah, been there, but done that. And it just in that one, she didn't give me a scenario or anything, but it just made me feel so comfortable. Like, okay, I'm not the only one going through this. Like, I can get through this. They were still married, and she was making like it wasn't a big deal. And I was catastrophizing everything, which I still do sometimes.
Of course, when you're in it, that's how you feel.
Yes, when you're in it.
But if you have a safe space, you can do that. Like, I don't think that in any marriage, you should always be discussing everything that's going on in your marriage. Absolutely not, because where is the bond? Where's the sacredness? However, you can have a safe space. So when something is heavy, you have a group of people who are not going to judge you or judge your partner. If you have a group of people and you know that they are very judgmental of your partner, that is not the group of people that you want to talk to, because you're going to get one-sided feedback. It's going to be biased because they already have something against your partner. But if you're with a group of people and you know that they love your partner and you might have something that is light enough for you to discuss with them, by all means, because you need that safe space. Women, we need that safe space. You cannot be, if you hold it all in, you're going to be constantly nagging your husband. He don't want to hear that all the time. Be his peace. When I was in therapy, I was definitely told in a marriage, a wife needs security, a man needs peace, and your children need stability. If at any moment any of those things are not aligned, if one is not aligned, nothing else can be. So if my husband's not making me feel secure, I cannot be peaceful. And if I'm not being peaceful, my home is not going to be stable. So everybody has to play their part. And so in saying that, if part of you staying peaceful is having those intentional conversations in a sisterhood, in a safe space, then by all means, make sure you do that. And if you don't have that, hopefully we can become that for you. We're going to be taking like anonymous questions. Sometimes we'll allow people to come and be guests so that they can tell us about some of their experiences. And we just really want this to be fun and purposeful, and also just serve as a platform, a platform so your voice can be heard, for those of you who might be going through any things or who just don't know what to do. We want to be that for you.
Absolutely. And our backgrounds are so completely different. So I do feel like KS helped some people with that. Like I said, he might have helped me, but it could be better coming from two women who are married, who are newly married, but been in a relationship for a long time, or married for a long time, or that's why we're so interested in other stories and guests to come up and give us their intake and their story. We're very inspired by other people's stories. So we welcome you all in as Psyched Wives with us. And we're looking forward to it.
Yep. So we'll be back soon to let you guys know the soft launch date. And what we wanted to leave you with, if you would like to comment, of course, comment, like, and share. But we have a specific question. When did you know you wanted to be a wife? Or why don't you want to be a wife? When did you decide that you don't want to be a wife? And we want to hear how you feel.
That's
genuinely.
A good question. Do you have the answer? Let me think. You said, when did I realize that I want to be a wife? So, growing up, I feel like I've always wanted to be a wife. I always felt like I was a wife. Now, throughout my childhood, I've had some hardships that hardened me. But I had a great love for my father. That has always been the center. I think how a lot of people feel about God sometimes. Like, my father was everything to me. And he passed when I was about 11.
Okay.
And so that hit me really hard. But that was, for me, a huge loss. And that male love, that male attention. And not to say that I became needy, because it kind of hardened me. And I was always a tomboy growing up. So I wasn't really interested in guys, but for me, I've never really felt the protection that I felt from my dad. And I really feel like that's something just as women that we need. Just growing up, like I said, there were some encounters. Nothing is like drastic ever happened to me, but I remember standing on a bus stop one time, and this guy was like hanging out the window, trying to talk to me. And I was like, oh, no, I'm okay. And he was like, F you then, B. Oh. You ain't all that anyway. And I was like,
Chicago.
Oh my God. Oh yeah. It was Chicago, 95th Street. Okay.
I already know.
And I was young, so I was like, I was looking around at the bus stop, like, dang, y'all gonna let him talk to me like that? But I mean, it is what it is. You kind of like out there for the wolves. You know, to me, it felt like, oh my gosh, this was my dad. You know,
so you knew you needed.
I knew
you knew you always needed a protector.
Always knew I needed a protector. Now, the part that I feel like got me kind of caught up is that I was looking for those relationships to be like my dad, which they were not. I mean,
that's typical. Most women, your first relationship will be similar to your father, because for those of us who have our fathers in our lives, that's your first male love, you know. So of course there's going to be some similarities, and as a young lady, you don't necessarily see some of the things that you shouldn't, you know, desire in a relationship in your father, because he's your father, he's not your partner.
Right.
So as you grow up, you're like, okay, I don't need a daddy, I need a man, I need a husband.
Exactly.
So I feel like I can definitely understand that and relate. I would say for me, when I knew I wanted to be a wife, so like you, my mom was married my whole entire life, okay, for the most part. Not to one person, but she was married. She was married to my dad. They divorced, and then she married her second husband. They divorced. She waited a while and was a single mom, you know, taking care of us. It's 3 of us. And then she had a boyfriend for a long time, and then they got married once we were adults. I feel like my mother did that because she felt like she didn't need a father influence at that time. She just needed a partner, and she was going to get us raised and grown and then, you know, marry. And so that's what happened. She's still with him today. They've been together since I was 10 years old. They're married. So I've always saw the value in marriage. I'm a preacher's kid. I'm a church girl. I always knew that. But I would say a pivotal moment in my childhood, I went to one of my cousin's weddings, and I was a little girl. I was probably no more than 8 years old. But everything was beautiful. I wasn't in the wedding. I think my sister was in the wedding. Everything was beautiful, and not just aesthetically, just like the feelings, the love, the blackness. They were both Greek. They were young. Everybody traveled from everywhere. The hall was big. She was serenaded. Everything was beautiful. And they built a life, you know, together. And I can see that growing up. And so I always aspired to that. I'm like, you know what? That's love. And I seen how that from that love, they had children. They built success. He's a mogul, you know. So I'm like, you know what? They had a solid foundation. And that's what I want. So I can say probably around 8 years old, if that's how old I was, whatever year my cousins got married, that's when I knew, oh, I'm a wife. I'm going to be married. So
yes.
Tell us when you knew, or tell us when you knew you weren't going to do it, you know, and we may change our mind and we may not.
Yeah.
But
don't let that pick me phrase scare nobody off either, because we're definitely going to have a
we gonna be called
podcast about that.
We know we going to be called pick-me's. We going to be picked apart, but we covered. So, you know, it doesn't even matter. But thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking, and thank you for commenting. And I hope you guys join us for our soft lunch, which we will announce soon. I'll let Fran take us out.
Well, that was pretty much it. Subscribe, share, like. Don't be afraid to reach out to us. Email us, psychedwives@gmail.com. We're excited to hear you guys' story.